All right. Welcome to the show. This is Devon Johnson with the Showtime Forum post-game report. I'm really excited to be here today, guys. It's on a Sunday, and it's the gospel truth. The Lakers are 43-12. They defeat the Boston Celtics by 2 in a close nail-biter full of tension, full of horrible referee calls, full of issues. But the Lakers get it done today, and it's an all in part to just an incredible team effort led by Anthony Davis and LeBron James today. And I can't explain to you how good this win feels. It's not because of the Boston Celtics rivalry. It's not even really because of what happened in Boston earlier and how we got smacked down with our worst loss of the season. Really, it's more about seeing this team do what it takes to win, despite the issues and the flaws that are obvious and apparent to everybody who watched the game. So obviously things like free throws, obviously things like referee calls, all of these things were thrown into the pot to really just cause a whole bunch of just unknown issues, just things that you were looking at and going, I don't know how this game is going to turn out. Because if the referees keep missing calls, they're missing calls. If the Lakers keep missing free throws, I really don't see how this is going to win, how we're going to win. But the Lakers pulled it out. And to be honest, a lot of this is what the playoffs are going to feel like, minus the really, really bad refereeing. But you're going to see a lot of the whistles being swallowed, which you saw for a majority of the time today. You're also going to see leads diminish very quickly. You're going to see a lot of lead changes, tight games. You're going to see a lot of full-out effort, which is what you saw today. Lakers, Celtics. I mean, the whole atmosphere was there, and it was an early game. So we have so much to get to today, guys. I cannot wait to talk to you guys about what's happening. So let's just kind of go through some of the things that we saw today. Of course, we're going to talk about the incredible play. But before I get to Lakers, let me say this. I think we need to, just as Lakers, to show respect and put respect on Jason Tatum's name. He torched us today. Second career 40-point game, 41 points today. He did it in 37 minutes. This is not to praise the Celtics, but it's also to keep your mind fresh as to looking at the East and looking at competition and seeing how things go. So that the Lakers were able to do what they did today, keeping the Celtics below 115 points, which is relatively great in this NBA with offensive ratings and people doing what they do. Jason Tatum being able to score 41 points is huge. But the bigger picture is that nobody else really got above 20 with the exception of Jaylen Brown. So today was one of those things where you saw them make a choice. They made a choice. They let Tatum get hot in the first half. In the second half, they did a much better job, even though he was still getting off his shots. But with all that being said, let's talk about our team. Let's talk about what we did. And there were some solid contributions all the way across. Of course, one of the things that we didn't want to see, but we knew was going to happen today, Anthony Davis and LeBron James playing plus 30 minutes. Anthony Davis at 39 minutes, which is fine, given the fact that he's so young and really in his prime. LeBron James at 35. And them really, keeping up with their normal averages. Anthony Davis at 32, LeBron James at 29. And then we had just really some really solid play from Rajon Rondo, man. Today in the game, he wasn't a huge contributor as far as points. He only had 4 points. But we talked about this the last game. When you have someone like Alex Caruso who's a plus 23, and then you have last game you had Rajon Rondo with a minus 7. Well, today, Rondo, who was a plus 15. He was doing all the right things that we needed him to do. He was assisting. He had 5 steals and 5 assists. So he was active. He was the defensive Rondo that we remember. Now, is he going to do this every game? Absolutely not. But what we do know is that he has the ability to turn it on when necessary, and today was one of the necessary games. To be honest, if we would have lost this game, we still would have been up in the standings. Nothing would have changed. The Clippers lost. The Nuggets lost. None of that would have changed Western Conference rise. But as far as the mentality heading into the playoffs, these are the wins you want to get. And when other teams who don't have the cohesion, don't have the chemistry, they tend to fall apart. Miscommunication. We saw that with the Clippers the other day. Just small things. Kawhi throwing a pass and Shamet just not, he's going straight to the three-point line when Kawhi was expecting him to dive towards the basket. These are chemistry issues that the Lakers really don't seem to have. There's a lot of communication happening on the floor. You saw it today, and really most of the mistakes were in things like fouling and really with the free throws. Today, I can't really explain it. Even Anthony Davis was having issues today. From the free throw line. The Lakers went 25 of 37. They shot 67%. We're one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the league. Now, we have a really great free throw shooter in Anthony Davis. As you saw at the end of the game, we're trying to get him to get the ball when we knew Boston was going to foul. But the real issue is that when we get into the playoffs, these free throws are going to become much more crucial in a 7-game series. And so I don't know what needs to happen, but I've already seen some adjustments. Dwight Howard tonight did an amazing job, 4 or 5 from the three-point line. He steps all the way back from the free throw line, just inside the semi-arc, and he begins to just hit these shots, which is amazing. And if that's going to be what it's going to be going forward, then I'm with that. I'm completely with that. And maybe, even with LeBron James, we know is just not a great free throw shooter. 7 of 12 tonight. Anthony Davis was 9 of 12 tonight. And normally Anthony Davis would be somewhere around 10 of 12, 11 of 12. But LeBron is normally around that 7 of 12. What I did like was that he still drove the ball into the basket. He drove towards the paint in the late minutes of the fourth, looking for the foul. And this is something that's not his norm. Normally he would do like he did to get that clinching shot to put us up 1 with that step back, that little dream shake that he did, and then the step back. But the truth is that when he goes to the free throw line, most of the time during the season, when we get to those last 3, 4, 5 minutes, he tends to shy away, settle for the jumper, or settle for the 3-point. And today he seemed to be a lot more aggressive. Now it obviously didn't pay off as much as we'd like it to, but it's good to see him being aggressive. Why? Because it also puts the opposition in foul trouble. It gets us in the penalty quicker. So even if he's missing these free throw shots, the next foul that happens on another player, it gets them to the free throw line. And the next person they're going to foul outside of LeBron James is going to be Anthony Davis. In fact, in the starting lineup, out of the 5, only 2 of the starters went to the free throw line. That was LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Everybody else who went to the free throw line was Kuzma, Howard, and Rondo off the bench. And let's talk about Dwight Howard and Kyle Kuzma today. Kyle Kuzma, who a lot of us have really just kind of thrown underneath the bench and really wanted to trade, get rid of. He did solid contributions again today. He seems to be finding his rhythm. 4 rebounds. He had a block, and he also had 16 points. That's what you want to see. And this wasn't against a cupcake team. This wasn't against a sub-500 team. This was against the Boston Celtics, who have been phenomenal, if not just against us, but they have a phenomenal talent. They have 20-point plus average scorers on their team that are able to do. Now, of course, Kimba was out today, so that may have contributed to some of that, but it allowed Jason Tatum to play freely. And there was even a point where Kuzma blocked Tatum when Tatum was getting to the rim. These are things you want to see from Kyle Kuzma. You're not asking him to be a 5-block, a 3-steal defender. You're asking him to do a play when it matters and to score when you can. And he was aggressive in the first half. Second half, he didn't do as much. But that first half, he was aggressive. 1 of 5 from 3, 6 of 13 from the field goal from the paint. And really, he was just doing his job. Dwight Howard, once again, did his job. 7 rebounds. And then he also had a block. Now, what I did not like was the fact that he had 4 fouls today. But the way the referees were calling fouls, there really was no way around that. But he did contribute 10 points, even though he had a -6 while he was on the floor, mainly because of the fouling that he was doing. So let's also get into some of these questions. And real quick, just so we're all, I don't know if anybody saw this during the game, but it has been reported that Markieff Morris has cleared waivers. He will join the Lakers. So as of tomorrow, or if really today, he will be a Los Angeles Laker, as all reports are saying. DeMarcus Cousins will officially be waived from the team, but he will stay with the team for the remainder of the season as he rehabs. Somebody put on Twitter that I thought was really amazing. Rob Pelinka is playing chess while others are playing checkers. And while we didn't make a lot of moves in the offseason, a lot of moves during the trade deadline, didn't do a lot during the buyout market, he was able to do something that was amazing. He was able to get a body that could body up with the Clippers acquisition. Which is something that's a necessity right now when you think about the Western Conference Finals and the Western Conference possibly semifinals, depending on how the Clippers play. You have another big body to match up against his twin brother, who's also on the Clippers, and you also keep the chemistry intact while still giving DeMarcus Cousins the opportunity to rehab without rushing. And you also have an opportunity to sign him for next year when he's fully healthy. He already has chemistry with the team. It'll really be like he's like when Julius Randle hurt himself in the beginning of the season and then never had a chance to play the rest of that and came back the next season. It's really going to be like really like a sophomore season with the Lakers next year if he so decides to sign. So this is something that we can look forward to. The Lakers officially did make a move in the buyout market. I do not believe, just being honest, I do not believe there's another move waiting. I think this is about as far as they're going to go, mainly because, as you can see, with Rondo had 22 minutes tonight, and we also said this, anytime that Rondo gets big minutes, you're going to see Caruso's minutes go down. Caruso only had 8 minutes, but they were good minutes. He contributed 6 points in 8 minutes. That's what you want to see from Caruso, but he did miss 3 open threes, which is not what you want from him. But with all that said, Rajon Rondo or Alex Caruso will be sharing a bulk of those bench minutes, which means if you were to bring in another guard, if it wasn't going to be Darren Collison, now you're looking at maybe a Dion Waiters. But is Dion Waiters really going to be beneficial in eating into the minutes of Alex Caruso and Rajon Rondo, especially when Rondo is contributing 5 steals and Alex Caruso is doing 6 points in 8 minutes? Is it really worth throwing off the chemistry, throwing in somebody who has been a problem child on multiple teams and has not really fit in with any culture that he's been in? Wasn't able to fit in with Pat Riley's culture, and if you can't make it with Pat Riley's culture, there is a problem. And so that's one of the things we want to look out for with the moves going forward. I doubt that Markieff will be playing in any of these games coming up. He probably will suit up, may not get huge minutes. As I said before, the Lakers have a couple of soft games coming up before they head into March. He may get some run before March, getting himself acclimated and things like that. But we're waiting to see what Vogel's going to do as far as minutes go. With more. So let's get to these questions, guys. I'm down to talk. Let's talk it out. Laker Metropolis, good to see you. Man, AD is out of sync, but he still delivered. And that is the key, guys. There are going to be games where AD is just not on it. And when we say out of sync, he still put up 32 points, right? But he would put up 32 points, had 6 turnovers, though. And this is the key. He had 2 blocks, which he's always going to have a couple blocks. He had 13 rebounds, but it's the turnovers that we're trying to limit. Now, with that being said, LeBron James is normally the main contributor to our turnovers, but tonight he only had 2. But him and Anthony Davis were both minus in the plus-minus category, with Danny Green being the worst on the team today with a minus 16. But all of our great pluses came from the bench. Kyle Kuzma with a plus 17. Rondo with a plus 15. You did see Avery Bradley coming with a plus 7. Avery Bradley played pretty great defense tonight. He played 29 minutes, but they were very silent minutes. He only scored 3 points on a 3-pointer. He hit 1 3. But that's fine. On a night like tonight where Anthony and LeBron were getting it going and you really needed your guards to defend more than you needed them to score, they did a good job tonight. Hey, man, AD was not really good in the paint and we still managed to win. It's very encouraging. Yes, Anthony Davis is going to have to learn how to deal with the multiple players coming at him in the paint. And it wasn't like he was getting blocked by bigs. There was a couple of strips that Tatum had, a couple of great plays by Jaylen Brown on Anthony Davis, and it's really just quick hands as he does his patented, I shouldn't say patented because LeBron James has one, but he does the back end, he does a fake, and then he spins towards the basket. Well, most guards now know I can't jump with him, but if I can get my hands on where the ball is, and as soon as he spins, they're going for it. So he has to figure out a little bit more of his post moves. Now, we know Anthony Davis can get to the paint when he has a head start, and he can do a whole lot of damage, especially when he's catching lobs or when he's coming down the court on a fast break. But the issue is that when he goes into the half-court set, which is going to be predominantly what most teams are running in the playoffs, is the half-court set, slowing it down. When they do the half-court set, can he take advantage of the smaller players without exposing himself to being stripped by those smaller guards? So he has to figure that out, and I think today was a good test for him. We were still able to get the win, but you want to see him be able. He really could have had 40, 45 points tonight if he had dominated the way that he really could have, but they were taking advantage of with their speedy hands over his predictable moves. So we want to see him kind of advance in those areas, and we'll see what happens. Al Sanchez, good to see you. And I'm sorry, that was G Lake Show who asked that question, but Al Sanchez, if AD would have made more shots this game, wouldn't have even been close. And that's true. There's a couple of things with that. Number one, the main reason why people celebrate depth is because if you do have a player who has an off night, you can rely on somebody else. Now, What we saw with the Celtics tonight or today was that if Jason Tatum wasn't scoring and Jaylen Brown was not scoring, they really didn't have an answer, right? So majority of their bulk of their points, 61 of their points came from Jaylen Brown and Tatum. That was almost half of their points, really. That came from really no, it was more than half of their points came from two players. Well, that's the same with us. So what you really want to see is more distribution throughout your scores. So on a night like tonight, you did have Kyle Kuzma, who stepped in as the third leading scorer on the team, which is what we want from him, is to be more aggressive, give us anywhere between 15 to 20 points, and he did that. So really, our point total was spread amongst three players as opposed to just two, which is good, right? So, Theus and Smart did contribute as well, but you really saw the majority of their offense was running through Tatum, okay? What you want to see is you want to see options for AD if he is struggling. What are the other options of scoring when LeBron's not on the court? Al Sanchez said, James Michael, so will it be AD to guard big wings? Tatum was a problem again. Maybe bit of luck. Kimba was out. Yeah, well, see, here's the thing. You're always going to have a player that's going to get off. James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Jason Tatum, Kawhi. There are certain players that are just going to score. Same for the Lakers. A bad night, which was technically a bad night for Anthony Davis. He scored 32 points. So you're always going to have a player on those teams, especially in the playoffs, that are able to play above their bad play. There's just, even if it's bad, they're still going for it. So you're not really looking for a person who's going to shut them down. It's probably not going to happen. Okay, the way the league is ran now, the way that referees call games, a lot of offensive players are just going to get the benefit of the doubt. There were plenty of plays tonight where LeBron James really should have got called, the benefit of the call. But LeBron doesn't do a lot of what the other players do. He doesn't do a lot of flashy moves and none of that stuff. He's very fundamental with his thing. He's very much bully ball when he backs down and he kind of gets you into the paint. So with that, a lot of those calls don't go. If you notice players that play more of a bully ball style, the Julius Randles and LeBron James, they tend not to get calls because for the most part, the referees look at it as almost abuse and there's nothing the other player could really do. On the flip side, you have somebody who's smaller like a Jason Tatum, they're going to get the benefit of the call because it just seems like the bigger people, like when they come in the paint, the Dwight Howards, the JaVale McGee's, and of course even LeBron James, it looks like they're doing more against the guard than what the guard can really do against the bigs. And so that's it. It's very unfortunate, but there's really no reason for AD to switch onto a Tatum. AD is great, but he benefits from the paint far more than he does the perimeter. And Jason Tatum was doing things tonight that were literally unguardable. I thought KCP did a great job in the second half, chasing through screens, being able to get to him, and even though he wasn't able to stop him fully, he was able to at least put pressure on him, and that's all you can really ask for. Blaze 2010. Is this a feel-good win? Seems like the refs were horrible down the stretch. The refs were all over the place. There were a couple of plays that should have gone the Celtics' way. Plenty of calls that should have went the Lakers' way. But this is the way it's going to be in the regular season. And you guys, I think you guys all know this. When you get into the playoffs, they trust their more seasoned veterans. The referees that have a much better track record and approval rating, if you will. And so they tend to trust those guys who were seasoned vets to call those games. And so you're not going to see a lot of these newer faces, new guys getting up there. They're really no names, right? Who getting in there, and God bless them, they're doing a great job as much as they can. But we're getting people who are learning as the game goes. And there was a couple of calls, like one of the last calls where there was a goaltending foul. They called foul, but they missed the goaltend. That was an obvious goaltend. There was one foul where Theus wasn't even in the screen, and they called the sixth foul on Theus for some reason when it was clearly on Jaylen Brown. So they ended up correcting it, but these are the mistakes you're going to see in the regular season. So some of it you just have to deal with, and every team's dealing with it. We've seen plenty of instances that have happened throughout the season where bad refs have called good teams some wins. And so we saw that with the Trailblazers. We've seen plenty of times with that. And so you got to just kind of play through it. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Al Sanchez, do you think AD's cap is still bugging him? Absolutely. And I think all of us were severely stressed out when we saw LeBron James grabbing that groin, man. We thought something had happened to his groin when it turns out he really just got kneed in what they call the bread basket, and he was just trying to get himself back together again. Obviously didn't affect his play down the stretch. He hit a clutch basket in those last couple of minutes that really gave us the lead, and we didn't lose it after that. So I think AD is still trying to get healthy and things like that. like once again, he was probable, which means that he's not fully healthy, but he's good enough to play. And you better believe, man, the Cito and her team and the medical staff and all of those people, they're going to be extremely cautious with LeBron, with really all the players going forward. I think part of the reason why DeMarcus Cousins was shut down for the season is because there was so much talk about him possibly coming back that they were like, there's no way we're going to let this guy get back on the floor and ruin his career. Right? So they're just thinking about the player first. Unlike other organizations chasing championships, they'll throw their players out there in the finals and cause them to tear Achilles and all that other stuff. But they were like, no, we're shutting it down. So if you know that Anthony Davis is okay to play, you know that he had to go through a rigorous verification and approval process from that medical staff. So even though it's still bugging him, I don't consider it a huge issue. Otherwise, they would not let him out there. I am still waiting to see what they do with LeBron. I think he's going to be sore tomorrow. That's for sure. But I do believe that he's getting more into a rhythm of his body just kind of dealing with the pain like we know him to be. We've seen this man roll an ankle in a game and come back 5 minutes later. So I think we're getting closer to that. You don't have that many more seasons. Maybe one more, 2 more seasons of this level of Iron Man, Superman that you see from LeBron. So, and 80's in his prime. So he just has to learn how to play through issues. Okay? And Laker fans, like I said, we're used to it. We're used to Kobe playing with one finger, one eye missing, and half of his body falling apart and still putting up like 36 with 12 assists, right? So we'll see. Al Sanchez. Kuzma couldn't guard Tatum, though. Kuzma is not asked to be a defender at all. And I want us to understand this. Like the veterans now are asking him to do that because they realize how crucial it's going to be going forward. But he is not a defender. Never been touted as a defender, was never scouted as one, and to be honest, has never shown that. We've seen better defense from Kuzma in this season than we've seen in all the previous seasons. I'm just being honest, okay? Like he had a block tonight. That's not a normal thing for him to stay with Tatum all the way to the basket and block it out of bounds. So really, I'm not looking for Kuzma to defend. He's going to be a liability, much like a Lou Williams. You're not asking. Nobody has called Lou Williams an elite defender. Not one person. Okay, it's the same thing with Kuzma. He's not going to be an elite defender. He's not even going to be a decent defender. He's going to be somebody who services the moment. And what you're asking him to do is cause enough of this disruption on the defensive end and produce enough on the offensive end that it justifies him being on the floor and getting minutes like he did tonight. So he scored 16, had a block. That's all I can really ask for. Nobody could really guard Tatum tonight. Okay, there's very few people in the league who are going to be considered Tatum stoppers. He's been on a roll for the last 9-10 games. They've won some, they've lost some, but he's a superstar that is coming into his own. And I really feel like a lot of the time he spent with Kobe is showing up in these moments because he is fearless. He does whatever he feels like doing. And I think he's going to be great in the Eastern Conference. I don't think the Celtics are going to win anything, but I think he's going to be good for their future. Laker Metropolis. Kranjus called Kuz to become a wing. There's a lot of talk about Kuz becoming a wing now that we've signed Markieff Morris, which, to be honest, is going to be kind of his thing. I think that's where he fits best. I think his offensive game fits that better. And we'll see. We'll see how it goes from there, but we don't really truly know what they're going to do. Al Sanchez, we could have used Morris on Tatum. Markieff Morris is, I'm assuming you mean Markieff, because obviously, his twin brother, we don't have him. But Markieff is a serviceable defender. He's not a great defender. He has size, but he's nowhere near what his brother is, okay? But what he is going to be, this is what I love. What makes this signing okay with me and actually makes me a little bit excited is that he's in an environment where he's not asked to do much. He's around a lot of veterans and championship-minded folk, and he's riding the momentum. So he'll be able to come in, take his time learning his role, and then really redefining himself as every other Laker who's come to this team has done. KCP, Avery Bradley, even JaVale McGee has found new life on this team. And so these are things that we're looking to do. It's almost like a rehab center for players who really, kind of lost their way in the NBA and kind of lost their flair. He averages great from the 3-point line as far as his time with Detroit. He's almost a 40% three-point shooter, and he's averaging about 11 points, which is serviceable, which is great, right? So I'm not really looking for him to do much. He's a big body, like I said, who's ready to bump with other ones. Tatum isn't a bump guy. Tatum is I'm going to use as many fundamentals as I can to get to the hoop, and I'm going to lose you on the way, and if I don't lose you, I'm going to get you to foul me. But like a Morris will come in much more like being a crossbreed between like a Dwight Howard and a Kuzma, a big body guy who can shoot the three but still be able to body up on the block, and that's what you want. Nomi Cuerdo, I don't even know how to pronounce it. I'm so sorry. I failed Spanish 3 times in high school. Nice beard, bro. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. It feels very rugged. J.R. Smith should be picked up. You need some fire off the bench. Drop Travis. Smith 818. Drop Travis. I'm trying to think who Travis is. Or maybe you mean somebody else. Well, yeah, J.R. Smith is a bucket getter. But here's one thing we have to trust in as fans, guys. When you have players out there who have been sitting for a long time, and there's plenty of contenders this year, 76ers, the Heat, Milwaukee, who's been snatching up people, the Clippers, Utah, okay? When you see these players that are sitting out there and not getting signed, you have to ask yourself, how is it that every GM is saying no to the same player, right? And the hope is that when you see that level of percentage, where 0% of the people are interested in J.R. Smith, and nobody's signing Dion Waiters, nobody's even asking them to come in and shoot, okay? You have to ask yourself, okay, so are we willing to roll the dice and possibly hit, or are we willing to risk the chemistry for an experiment that may not work? And the best example of this is Carmelo Anthony. The reason why Portland Trailblazers gave Carmelo Anthony a chance was really 2 parts. Number one, he really was the best option available out there, and then number two, they had the injury bug so bad they really didn't have a choice. They had to get somebody in there with so many people being out. But prior to that, had everybody been healthy, Carmelo would have never been signed. Luckily, they found somebody who was tremendous on the offensive end. That gave them a spark initially, but they've still had their worries and their issues since then, now that he's settled down. Are you asking J.R. Smith to be a revelation like a Carmelo? Or are you asking J.R. to come in and eat up Kuzma's minutes and essentially try to take over where Kuzma will be? Maybe. We don't know. But once again, you have Kuzma scoring 16 points today against a really good team, albeit at home. But I think the issue is do you want to mess that up now for something that may not work? J.R. Smith may not work with this team because Frank Vogel values not points. We only scored 114 points today. He does not value points. He values defense, which is why you have so many centers that have so many blocks, which is why you have an Alex Caruso who gets heavy minutes, a Rajon Rondo who has 5 steals. Rondo only had 4 points but had 5 steals, okay? Like that's a heavy statement. That lets you know the DNA of the team is that the point guard, the backup point guard had more steals than he had points, and it was easily one of the biggest contributions to us winning was the amount of steals that Rondo got, and really it's crazy saying this, the defense that he played. So J.R. Smith is out there. Very possible he could be signed, but all of the GMs are saying the same thing. Not just Pelinka, not just Jerry West. Jerry West isn't asking for him. Nobody was willing to sign him during the buyout market. And listen, but he's been sitting out there the whole time. This hasn't been like some recently I've been cut. He's just been waiting, sitting, and nothing. Nobody is looking for that. So I tend to trust the averages and say if 100% of the league is saying no, I may be the great one that gets that, one out of 32 that goes, yep, I got it. But the truth is, I don't think he's really going to pan out. Smith 818, glad to see Los Angeles Lakers beat an upper echelon team. They have a lot of work to do. They still have a lot of work to do, which is fine. Yeah, you're right. It's actually really good, especially when you head into a heavy schedule like March is. We've talked about that, Sixers and the Clippers and all that. But it's good to see them break even. Now, of course, because the East Coast team, this was the end of the series with them. We're not going to play the Celtics again. But to know that we lost one, won one, lost on the road where we're generally great, won at home where we're generally bad, or not as good, I should say that. Not as good as we are on the road. It's good to see that. Morris has cleared waivers. Al Sanchez, exactly. Yeah, he will be a Laker by tomorrow morning. You guys will see that, and they probably won't announce anything because of Kobe celebration tomorrow. But you're going to see it. You're going to see that kind of pass through. You'll probably see him at practice on Tuesday. Who knows? Smith 818. Does Los Angeles Lakers playing one of the best games of this year and barely win a game without Kemba? This wasn't one of their best games. It was one of the best games to watch, but this by far was not one of their best performance games at all. There were plenty of issues that happened today that just weren't good, man. And we only had 13 turnovers, which is fine, but we also had 22 fouls, which is letting you know that we were way too handsy and stuff like that. But it doesn't. I mean, like for me, I'm not looking at this to be a barometer of now we're going to win the championship. I'm not looking at if they would have lost, all is over. Once again, you have to think differently about how the playoffs work because you go to a 7-game series. These games are going to be played a lot like tonight. What you're looking for is can the Lakers rebound from losing leads, which is going to happen because it's a game of runs. Can they play gritty defense, which they did tonight or today? You're looking for certain signs to say, do they have it in them to even do it? Let alone if they execute well enough to be successful, do they have it in them? Do they have that dog in them? And we saw a lot of that today. And after the All-Star break, being up as many games as you are in the loss column and being able to kind of really coast for a little bit as you head into these last 20-something games, they didn't do that. It almost seemed like they picked up the intensity. They've lost some of their fundamentals, but they're doing a lot of great things. And I think today was a great testament to that. And to be honest, I think this game would have been much more winnable with Kemba playing because Kemba is somebody that we will allow to go off. But Tatum going off really stretches out our wings. And so it causes us to have to change up defensive rotations and things like that. But Kemba kind of steals away from Tatum being able to score as much, okay? And so I think if we would have contained Tatum a little bit more, we would have been fine with Kemba going out there. Kemba's not going to do what Tatum did tonight. Kemba's not going to go for 41 against the Lakers, not against our size. Tatum has the perfect size to shoot over our bigs, which he was doing, shooting over perimeter defenders, which he was doing on the three-point line. And that's not something Kemba is a huge threat at. Kemba's just very fast. He's much more like a De'Aaron Fox when it comes down to speed, or even a John Morant when it comes to speed. And then he just has incredible handles like Kyrie. And so if you can kind of let him do his thing with that, and then you clamp down on the off-ball offensive players, and you can really do well. Today, they were able to just go straight off. Jason Jeter, do you think Markieff can play 3 in spot-up times? I hope so. I think that's going to be the most interesting experiment going into the playoffs is finding out where Markieff fits in this lineup because we do have several holes that we need filled. We got to have a primary ball handler, which he's not going to fit. But we are going to need somebody who can play like a 3-and-D type identity, who can be able to shoot the 3 while defend perimeter defenders. Kind of be that backup in a sense almost to Danny Green, who is kind of off and on with his defense tonight. He just wasn't there tonight. But I think he has the ability to kind of, once he finds his spot, is going to maximize this roster even more. LeBron is clutch, D million. He's clutch unless it's the free throw line. And I got to say this, man. Nothing makes me more nervous than LeBron James at the free throw line. Nothing makes me more nervous. And that's not because he's on the Lakers and he's old. It's because it's always been his Achilles heel since he played in high school, okay? He's just not a great free throw shooter. But like I said, I loved him getting aggressive and getting into the paint, which he did today. And so even he wasn't afraid of free throws today. Even though he was 7 of 13 or something like that, he missed 5 free throws. He still went to the line. And that's what I want to see from him. Challenging himself to hit the free throws in those clutch moments. With that being said, Anthony Davis missed a clutch free throw, right? He missed a technical free throw. Like, these are things that, like, we really can't afford in the playoffs. But tonight we got away with it. We rolled the dice on Dwight. What are you talking about, bro? Well, Dwight didn't really matter. He had a non-guaranteed contract. You could have cut him with no issues. Signing Markieff Morris, you're talking about the exception to sign him and things like that. There's a whole lot that goes into the buyout market that's different than what Dwight really came in with, like, literally nothing, right? That roll of the dice really was zero risk for us. At any moment, we could have cut him and kept our money and had a roster spot open, right? So like that's Dwight he's literally the anomaly in the entire league. And so we like rolling the dice on a J.R. Smith is way different than a Dwight because we're not asking J.R. Smith to come in on a non-guaranteed contract. He won't. We're not asking J.R. Smith to come in and do a limited role. That's not J.R. J.R. is a shooter. He's like, I'm coming in to shoot. And to be honest, I don't think he'd accept a role coming in where he's third option off the bench. So I don't know really how he would work. But I also think that part of LeBron hyping him up on Instagram was so that it's the same thing with Carmelo, and so that somebody will sign him going into the playoffs, because he has until the end of the month, and then after that, it doesn't really matter. I just don't see the Lakers making that move. Number one, because JR is not a tremendous defender. I think if anything, they're going to sign somebody who's a great defender more than a point scorer. And anybody in the offensive end, they're not looking to score. They're looking for someone who can handle the ball and be a tremendous ball handler, if anything, outside of LeBron, right? So, which is why Darren Collison would have been great, because he kind of checks those boxes. But obviously he didn't sign. Gets J.R. Smith cut Troy. Possibly. I don't think they're going to do that because, once again, that means that J.R. Smith will be taking Troy's side of the bench. And like it happened again tonight. Troy Daniels didn't play. Are you asking J.R. Smith? Are you really thinking J.R. Smith's going to sign with the team and not play? Okay, and then the question would be, okay, you cut Troy, but you really, if you're cutting Troy and asking J.R. Smith to actually get minutes that Troy is not getting, that means you're asking somebody who is getting minutes to take Troy's position and get no minutes. So if you're asking J.R. Smith to get into that lineup, you're officially moving from a 9-man rotation or 10-man rotation, and you're moving somebody out of that. So you're moving Kuzma, you're moving Caldwell Pope. Who are you moving out of that? You already have 3 players who don't play. If you're signing a player, you're signing them to play, right? You're asking them to come and contribute. So if you're saying I want to cut Troy and add J.R. Smith so that at some random moment we can call on him when he hasn't played for 3 games, we're going to call on him this game. That's not J.R. Smith's personality. That's not his mindset. I think LeBron James knows that. I also think we have to remember that any signings that happen have to go through LeBron James. They proved that over the offseason. Literally, Jared Dudley got on the team because he texts LeBron. Okay, so Pelinka's going to run everything through LeBron and AD to see how they feel about a certain player being signed. I'm sure they've talked about J.R. Smith, and J.R. Smith is not signed. So there's a reason. Like, we see it like, hey, man, there's a bucket getter. There's a Jamal Crawford. There's a Deion Waiters. There's a J.R. Smith. We value buckets, but that's not how the Lakers value wins. They value wins by defense. And if you're not a great defender, it doesn't matter how many buckets you get. Rajon Rondo did not get great buckets tonight. Alex Caruso did not get great buckets tonight, but they played incredible defense. And that is part of the reason why we won tonight. And I know we like to see if we can outscore teams, but we're watching teams like Houston who get into the playoffs and try to outscore people, and they can't do it. Defense in the playoffs wins championships, period. THT doesn't lose his spot on the roster even though he's playing with the South Bay Lakers. No, but you're not going to see. I mean, Talon's not getting called up for any. You might see a Talon signing. A sighting later on. Like when, like the last couple of weeks of the season, even possibly when we play the Clippers, depending on where the record is at. You'll probably see a lot of players getting called up. Antetokounmpo, you'll probably see this guy, Devontae, getting called up. You don't really know. I mean, at this point, they could if they want to, but I think they're going to hold him down in South Bay until it's time to bring him up, almost kind of like how they did Caruso. Caruso got a lot of his play because the team was so bad and we had so many injuries, it didn't matter. But right now, it doesn't really make sense to bring him up. Let him keep developing, cooking the league the way he's doing, making a name for himself. He still gets his time in at the Lakers facility and being able to talk to veterans and things like that. But he won't necessarily be a contributor this year at all, to be honest with you. JR better than Troy and Dudley. D Million. JR is way better defender than DG, Kuzma, and Dud. I will say this. Dudley's not getting playoff minutes. Okay, he is a much better defender than Kuzma, but they don't want Kuzma to defend. That's not what they're asking Kuzma to do as much. And he's not a better defender than Danny Green. I think the way we view JR is far different. And once again, don't take my opinion on it. Just ask all the other executives in the league why they haven't signed J.R. Smith. There was a reason why the other Morris twin had to get traded for, and there was a bidding war over him because executives wanted him, right? But JR has been open for everybody. Listen, Lance Stevenson is trying to get back in the league. Doesn't matter. If executives don't want him, it's kind of giving you the telltale that there's plenty of tape on him. He's been in the league long enough that they know his trends, and still teams are saying he really can't contribute as much as we would need him to do. So, with that being said, if we sign him, that's great. But he's not going to take Danny Green minutes, especially in the playoffs, because you signed Danny Green to be a playoff defender, which he's going to do. Danny Green is one of the people who plays better on the second and third game because he learns trends and then he does the veteran savvy thing and he's able to play you better. Rondo plays better against the Celtics on the second game because veterans tend to learn the trends. Once they have tape on a player, after that first time, they tend to play better on the next one, which is why the 7-game series is such a bigger deal because teams can make adjustments. Even after a blowout, they can make adjustments. This is what made Golden State so valuable when they were down 3-1 against Oklahoma City. Once they had enough tape, they were able to go back and say, I can do this, and this, and they were able to lock down and do what they had to do to win the next 3 games. So the same thing for the Lakers is that you want Danny Green to turn into Danny Green that we know of in the playoffs. That's where he's going to be valuable, okay? And so, like I said, let's see here. All the GMs said the same thing about Dwight. Also, J.R. Smith is buckets with a stagnant bench. All the GMs said the same thing about Dwight, except this. The only reason Dwight got signed was because Cousins got hurt, number one. And then number 2 was because we had a non-guaranteed contract. No other GM in the league is going to be able to do that. We were able to do that with a fresh roster. We were trying to get things together. And really, it worked out because it happened during the offseason. And there was a lot of conversation behind it. Dwight came in humble. Rolling the dice came in that the reason why they signed him was because they said his mentality was right. There is nobody who's saying JR's mentality is going to be the same as Dwight. There's a level of humility you have to have coming in to play with this team. Because if you come in there talking loud, getting upset about stuff, this is not the chemistry of this team. 1 through 15, they all like each other. So much so DeMarcus is like, wave me, and I'm still showing up to practice. That's the level of culture that you have. J.R. Smith has never been a culture guy, okay? He's been a great friend of LeBron. We all know him as a great bucket getter when it's time, but it's the same thing with Jamal Crawford, a great bucket getter, right? So you have to think about more than just scoring, more than just, I think he's better. The executives, you can't use Dwight as a barometer for any of that because we had conversations with Dwight that made it okay to sign, okay? The rolling of the dice came with a long conversation with multiple players and the GM to say, hey, man, like for real, like if you're not with it, we will cut you in a minute. You're not saying that to J.R. Smith, right? You're not cutting a player to add a player so that you can cut that player later, right? We had Boogie on the roster. We had a hole to fill. We used Dwight in that position. In this time of the season, it's far different than in the offseason. Bro, read my text. She's man be interactive. Read your column. I don't know what column you're looking for. Alexander, when will he be in LA uniform? Probably won't be in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform. Well, I mean, essentially, he probably will be signed today. You're just probably not going to hear a lot of conversation about it with so much focus being on tomorrow for Gigi and Kobe. You may start hearing the conversation, seeing pictures and yada 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 after that. But I think right now all of LA is kind of focusing in on tomorrow, and then we'll kind of see everything from there. You probably will see him in a uniform, ready to go, right? But I don't know if he's going to actually get as many minutes. We'll see. This is one of those things I haven't really seen Vogel in action in, where it's as far as getting players this late into a season when the identity's already been formed, somebody that you really don't know but obviously can contribute. I think we'll see based upon how Vogel, essentially analyzes him in the practice setting and to see how players move with him and things like that, and the cohesion. Because once again, you're asking Morris to take some minutes away from somebody, which most likely will be Kuzma. So how does he fit into these lineups where Kuzma's just now starting to get his footing and starting to average in the double digits over the last 4 or 5 games? So like you got to find out where he's going to contribute, what his skill sets are, right? In this team where we best need him, and can he fill that role? So we'll find out. My hope, obviously, is that by March he's fully ready to go, because we're definitely going to need him against the Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and stuff like that. So we'll see. Let's do the same with JR. We need firepower for the bench. The bench unit is weak. Now I will say this: the bench has been really inconsistent. But tonight, they scored about 1/4 of our points, which is you can't really ask too much of that. Right? So they scored almost 42 points off the bench tonight. So that was fairly well. 16, 10, 4, 7, 16. So they did all right. But this is not the consistent bench that we've seen. So D-Million, I'm with you on that. We do need some firepower, but that's once again not what Frank. I have to keep pounding this. Frank Vogel is not after firepower. That's D'Antoni. What he's after is defense, period. If defense is not your first mind, you are sitting that bench. What's one of the reasons why Dudley, Cook, and Troy Daniels are only brought in on shooting situations. They're not brought in to defend because they have zero defensibility. As hard as they try, they're just not. They don't have the length. They don't have the size. and they really don't have the defensive IQ. Not to sound belittling to them, but they really don't have what it takes to really defend this late in the season. So they normally ride the bench until there's something that aggressively happens that requires them to be in the game. And so he's not looking for firepower. Just to be honest, he's not looking for firepower. He's looking for defense. If it's not defense, then it's a ball handler. J.R. Smith is not a ball handler. He's more of a ball stopper, which is fine. He's a tremendous off-the-ball shooter. But if you're going to do something offensively, you just need somebody to handle the ball, and we don't have that. If there's somebody on the market who could do that, they probably would sign them over J.R. because that's a bigger glaring need than somebody being able to shoot. Just to be honest. In the playoffs, we are 8-man deep, and playoff experience counts. JR has playoff DNA. And this is one thing that LeBron keeps saying. He's like, listen, when you need buckets, this is the dude you go to, right? Once again, though, pounding it back. Frank Vogel, defensive-minded. Always will be defensive-minded. Has always been his thing. Even in Indiana, when he had Paul George and things like that, what kept them close in 7-game series with the Heat was not their scoring. It was their ability to defend. What garnered LeBron's respect was their ability to defend, and I mean give them fits. Dwayne, LeBron, like being able to give them fits not only in the paint but on the perimeter, and that's what Frank Vogel's calling card is. When you sign a D'Antoni as your coach, offense is going to be the first thing. When you sign a Frank Vogel as your coach, defense is going to be the other thing. There are other coaches who don't necessarily have a thing, right? Doc Rivers is not really about defense or offense. He's much more of a balanced coach. He's found a lot of success by being able to play tough-nosed defense as well as offense. Same with Brad Stevens. He's much more of a schemer. He's a much better play caller, than most coaches. Even Phil Jackson wasn't a tremendous guy when it came to defense or offense. He just kind of had a offense that he set out there, and the players had to figure it out on their own. So to play in a Phil Jackson team, you had to have a high IQ to be able to figure things out on your own. He just puts you in position to succeed. But that's not Frank Vogel. Okay, Frank Vogel literally is a defensive-minded coach. And I'm not even going to talk about Lionel Hollins, who also is a defensive-minded coach. So defense is what they preach. That's what you're going to see. DG need to stretch them T-Rex arms T-Rex arms out. He's getting burned a lot, man. But I'm hoping he turns it on in the playoffs, which has been his trend. Wayne, nope, still riding with this team as constructed the whole way, flaws and all. I tend to lean your way, Wayne. I think this is what I'm going to be honest about. I truly think that what we have is about what we're going to have in the playoffs. Okay. All we can ask for now is for them to elevate where they currently are to a higher standard. That's all we can really ask. Stay injury-free and elevate your game. I don't think you're going to see a lot of different changes. And so what we have to do is kind of just fix our minds to say, if this is the team, this is the team. This is one of the things I was telling one of my friends, man. They get married, and I think when people get married, this is a kind of a segue, but it's almost symbolic. When people get married, they almost expect their spouse to turn into something different at the altar, right? Like once you marry him, like, hey man, like I need you to be different. But the truth is, when you were dating them all that time, they've kind of showed you who they are, and you make your decision to marry them not on the potential, but on what you got, right? And so when you're looking at this team, when you're 43-12, they're showing you who they are. They're going to have plenty of flaws, but they're going to find a way to overcome them, and they've only failed at overcoming it 12 times. Right? Only failed at it 12 times in almost 60 games. So when you look at that, you go, okay, so I'm going to have to accept some of these flaws because they're still going to give me wins, right? And this is the person that we're marrying going into the playoffs. This is the team, right? You're not going to see a drastic difference. Even with Markieff coming in, you're not going to see some drastic revelation, right? It's not like we're going to start shutting teams down, winning by 20 going forward. You're essentially going to have the same thing. He just elevates certain aspects, right? He's able to improve and evolve in certain areas. But for the most part, it is what you get, right? So we'll see. Make Lego Metropolis. Thank goodness for Judy Cito, Nina, and company. That's the reason why Boogie is rehabbing with the team. Exactly. I'm so happy that he's not rushing back. And I'm so happy that he's sticking with us, man. That All the Smoke podcast, when I heard him talking about how much fun he was having, how much he loved the team, how hype he was like, man, I can't wait to get on the floor with AD and L and Rondo. Like hearing that, and I'm going, we could really run this back next year, adding Cousins. Like that's crazy to me. Like next year you can get rid of these 1-year contracts. Put on a Boogie. You know what I mean? So I'm really glad that he's rehabbing. I'm really glad they shut him down and just let him focus on him, getting himself healthy. I want to see, just to be honest, I want to see this dude get the contract he deserves, man. This dude has been a grinder in this league all the years he's been here. He's been a tremendous scorer. Obviously, he's coming off of several injuries on the same leg, but I want to see this dude come back, have the comeback story of the year next year, and I want him to do it in a Laker uniform. If Markieff is a better defender, more consistent three-point shooter than Kuz, call me Al's Acoustic. Is Markieff a better defender? Al Sanchez, Al Skusik. Got you. Is Markieff a better defender, more consistent 3-point shooter than Kuz? Well, I'll say this: he's about on par with Kuz with defense. I mean, he's better. He's better because he fills a different need, right? They're essentially asking Kuzma's frame of a body to stick the same people that Morris is sticking, and Morris is far more capable body-wise of sticking with some of these guys, right? On the opposite end, since he's been with Detroit, he's almost a 40% three-point shooter, right? So that you're like, man, that's heavy. But the question would be is what role are you asking him to fill, right? The way they're talking is that Morris and Kuzma will be on the floor together. Now I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know what the remedy and the chemistry is going to be with that, and who's going to run point, and is this, you're talking about Rondo, KCP, like what's that lineup look like? But they're talking about running them both so that that you do have a stretch four and you have a wing three that are able to hit from opposite sides and somebody who's able to get rebounds on the inside. So we'll see. Smith A18, my fear is that we get into position and no one on one can hit an open three. Yeah, tonight was bad tonight, guys. I mean, we hit threes when they mattered. You know, LeBron was pretty much our best shooter from three-point land tonight. He was 4 of 10. But that's, shooting 32% is about where we've been. But you really want to see your Caldwell Pope, who was 1 of 3. You want to see him shooting more corner threes like he was earlier when he was hitting that hot streak. Avery Bradley's essentially been great these last few games. He wasn't as great tonight, but the only shot he did hit was a 3. The parts that worry me are the Danny Greens, who are 1 of 4. But traditionally he's been a streaky shooter, so you'll probably see him get streaky. You're hoping that he gets streaky at the right time. That's what you're really hoping for. Alex Caruso had 3 shots, but Alex has never really been a great shooter. His offensive game has gotten better because he finishes at the rim far better than he did when he was called up the last 2 seasons. But he's finishing now. But he needs to work on extending that range. His mid range is not respectable yet. And honestly, his 3-point shooting is really iffy at best. Some games he'll have 3, some games he'll go over like he was tonight. So once again, now this goes D-Million. This goes back to what you were talking about as far as having a shooter that's knocked down like a J.R. Smith who can hit those open threes. But the truth is that now you're taking Caruso's defense off, right, and replacing it with the J.R. Smith, who AC is probably one of our best defenders on the team, right? Next to AD and next to a KCP, they're probably our 3 best defenders that we have on the team. In fact, he's like a top 10 guard defender when it comes down just to like defensive efficiency. So it's a weird thing with this team because they're so constructed on the things that we don't necessarily value as much. We don't necessarily say that defense is bad, but we don't value it as much as we like seeing people get buckets. Seeing Dame score 50 points is like, yo, we need to have Dame. But when you see Dame score 50 and they still have a 3-game losing streak, you're going, I don't know if that's worth it, right? So you want to be able to stop them from scoring. Winston Mobile Apps, I'm a little worried about AD when the game is on the line. I'm worried about AD and LeBron. LeBron hit the clutch tonight. I'm super happy, man. And I think, once again, there's a different, I don't know what the vibe is, the closer the playoffs get, but something turns on with these cats. Maybe it's because the whistles get swallowed a little bit more. They're able to play through a lot more contact and things like that. But I'm really hoping that there's a different mindset heading into the playoffs, that we're coming in here to do damage. And like I said, AD is a tremendous player, once-in-a-lifetime generational player. We are lucky to have him teamed up with LeBron James at a time like this. But there are some shortcomings and some flaws that he has, and a lot of it is just learning it, okay? I'm hoping that this playoffs will give him the opportunity to go further than he's ever been. I would love to see him get a championship this year so that when he plays when LeBron is gone, he doesn't have to play with the pressure of, I need to win my first chip. I think he needs to take advantage of LeBron being the facilitator that he is tonight. LeBron James was on fire tonight, in general, because he had 9 assists, 8 rebounds, and then 29 points. That's heavy, man. You're not going to get a lot of people who are running the point who are doing that consistently as an average, right? So, I'm worried about it, but I'm thinking that these playoffs will give him the experience, the opportunity that he needs to prove that he is able to handle the pressure. LeBron can short circuit and get tired in clutch positions. No one can step up on this roster. Yeah, he does so much in the first half of the game that by the time he gets to those last couple minutes, man, it just feels like, I don't want to say he's gassed, but you can tell the game's been wearing on him, right? He's going to play 40 minutes in the playoffs, easy. And so you're worried, like, man, is there a way that we can give him help so that he's not exerting himself so much on the offensive end and really now on the defensive end? Winston's mobile apps. Why did the Lakers come out and play with more force after losing by 22 in Boston? I don't know if it was so much about the Boston, even though they talked about that being something that they thought about. I think it was much more about just getting into this position that they're in, realizing that other teams are chomping at their heels in the standings, and then really just knowing that, like, we've seen these teams before. And we don't really have an excuse to say we didn't see it coming, which is what made the Clipper loss so bad. Even though that they didn't see Paul George and Kawhi together in the first game. I'm fully expecting that these next couple of games that we play against them, we're going to be far more competitive. But we got to figure it out. Blake Sinclair missed the game because of the time difference. Glad that we got the win against the Celtics. Yes, sir. You missed a good one. Hope you can go back and watch it. Laker Metropolis, this is the last one here. Does load management come into play for the rest of the season? Not yet. Once again, if you go into the standings, if you go into the standings, what we're looking for is we're looking for our record to clinch that number one seed, which is obviously going to happen way down the line. But once we can kind of look at the schedule and go, okay, I think we got it. We should be good. Right now. We have a 5.5 game, almost 6 game lead over the Nuggets, almost a 7 game lead over the Clippers. Now, this is what's interesting. We talk about the standings. Lakers are number 1, Nuggets are in the 2 position, Clippers at 3, and Rockets at 4. Here's where it gets interesting with the Jazz, Thunder, Mavericks, and the Memphis Grizzlies kind of equaling out the bottom half of the playoff spot. If you look really at those standings there, all of these games, literally, the Nuggets are 5.5 games behind, but they're really only 4.5 games. They're really only like 5 games out of the 7th spot, right? So they're kind of sitting right in between. Like a bad streak could put them at the bottom of the playoff standings. Even more so, the Portland Trailblazers are 19 games back, obviously, but they're only 4 games back out of the 8th position. So a lot of this is going to shuffle. I think a lot of this is going to shuffle. The Rockets and the Jazz have identical record right now. Oklahoma City is right behind them with a 2-loss difference. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of that shuffling. The question is going to be, for the Lakers, is how far can they extend their game break between them and the number 2 seed. I fully expect the Nuggets to fall a little bit more. I don't think they're going to hold the number 2 position. And you're going to see how quickly can we get to the place where we can clinch our conference. Once we do that, you're going to see load management like a mug. I'm telling you, even Frank Vogel kind of alluded to it earlier, but he said that he was like, as of right now, we're really concentrating on, getting these wins, keeping players as healthy as possible until we get to the last few weeks of the season. That lets you know that he's thinking if we can get to the last few weeks of the season and have a good lead in the conference, we can sacrifice a few games where those players don't play. And that's going to do wonders for LeBron James. Look at how he came out after resting for 9 days during the All-Star break. And he really didn't rest. He was doing a whole lot of sponsorship requirements and playing in the game and doing things like that, being with his family. But when you talk about like 9 days, if you can give that dude like 3 games off at the end of the season heading into the playoffs, oh my God, that would do wonders for his body. And then if you could knock the first seed out really quickly, it gives him even more rest before getting into the next round. So we'll see. Who else is lefty that they could get? Alexander. I'm not sure. Last 3 games, LeBron James numbers. This is from Jonathan Watson, I believe, who's talking tonight, who's aggregating. So it says last 3 games, LeBron James' numbers have been 31 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, and 52% shooting. Field goal percentage. This is why you call him the king, guys. I don't care what nobody says. He is the best player. I've been hearing so much nonsense about Kawhi being the best player when he's not even playing all the games. I'm hearing people saying Rudy Gobert's defensive player of the year. Are you kidding me? Davis was out for a quarter and still had 7 blocks last game. Like, I think the issue is that people just don't want to give the Lakers the credit that they deserve. We are exactly, if not better, than what people anticipated. Putting LeBron James and Anthony Davis together was what the league feared, because Anthony Davis was going to be who he was, but he'd be even greater. LeBron James was going to turn into the point guard of the century, leading the league in assists, and shooting 52%. Listen, like that's huge when you're shooting that much and you're scoring that much and you have that many rebounds. in year 17. I don't know what else people want. I really don't know what else people want, man. LeBron James is absolutely the king, and he is with us on the Lakers, who are the number one seed. And I could not be more excited about where we're headed. Now, we have a couple of games that are going to give us an opportunity, hopefully, to give the king some rest. And so we're just going to talk about this a little bit so that we can see what's coming up. Because this was a huge game, right? This was a huge game. And we talked about this before. The new goal now is trying to get to 50 wins. And when we looked at the schedule the last time, we did talk about Memphis being a win, and I said Boston could be a win, and I believe New Orleans, which is the next game on Tuesday, is easily a win. So that means that you could be 44-12 heading into your road trip. Golden State, that should be a win. Memphis is going to be tough because you're in their home and they battled us really hard. We should be able to win that. We may not. New Orleans on the road. They've been playing great, but we should be able to win that one. We're going to have a chance to see Zion prior to that. So hopefully when we get to New Orleans, we'll be able to have much more tape on him and be able to play him better. So heading into March, you should have a nice, good cushion if we do our work against Philadelphia and Milwaukee, and of course the Clippers on March 8th. So I'm really excited, man. I think New Orleans is going to be a great game. I think it's going to be great. I honestly I'm loving Laker Metropolis bringing Uncle Shannon Sharp to play for the Lakers. That's a big man too. If you ever met Shannon Sharp in real life, he's not a small fry. That's a big man in his 50s. But we really should be able to have a great game, exciting game. Really excited for Lonzo and Brandon and Zion and just seeing that young core, because it really makes the NBA just that much more exciting going forward. I do not believe they have enough to defeat us. I do believe they have enough to make this game worth watching. And so I can't wait till Tuesday night when I come back and talk to you guys. But make sure that you guys do what I always talk about doing. Hop into the DMs, hit the comment section of all of these Laker players. Send the spirit bomb. Let them know, man, we appreciate you. Great win. Hype them up, gas them up, and then remind them that Laker Nation is behind them. And as in the spirit of Kobe, I'm going to end the podcast or the live stream today saying the same thing that I always say. And if you are available tomorrow, just make sure you're watching that. It's going to be a tremendous celebration. They said this is not going to be it's not going to be about the grief. It's going to be much more about celebrating the life of Kobe Bean Bryant, who passed away at 41. So we're going to celebrate tomorrow, and we're going to remind ourselves going into Tuesday's game. Mamba out, but not forgotten. I'm going to check you guys later. See you on Tuesday night.